So the new media venture is called 900 Square Feet, but I wanted to have short form, if you will, video interviews, and we're going to call them 900 seconds, which times out to 15 minutes, and we'll try to go 15 minutes or less. So on a day, we're here at 900 Square Feet corporate headquarters in Swampscott, Massachusetts. We had an earthquake. I can't even make that up. No, we did. It was centered in Maine. It was 3.8. And at first, I thought it was just a plane coming too close to the house, because we're in the flight pattern sometimes for Logan Airport. So I figured I better get a first guest of seismic proportions.
Oh, jeez.
Ooh, Keegan Cook, the Minnesota coach. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good in the most important spaces. So thanks for asking. Nice to have some time with you.
You did something recently that I think is one of the most significant moves in college volleyball in an offseason so far that has been just a barrage of significant moves. But Kristen Kelsey left as your assistant coach to take the head coaching job at Michigan State, and you hired Nellie Coleman, and right off the bat said this was a general manager. And I think that's an important move for the new landscape. And I've dominated all of the time here, so I leave it the next step up to you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it was yeah, Kristen getting the job at Michigan State was a proud moment, right? Just someone who's been in the trenches here with me and a real partner in crime in our early years here, and so happy just to see her again, crushed her press conference, stole all my best lines, and just looks like she's in the right place. So really happy. And the first thing I thought is I better just retire the position and come up with something new because she's going to be a hard one to replace. But it's been a tough couple years in college sports. I mean, all of us are feeling it. Things are changing faster than we can come up with best practices, and we feel like we're playing from behind as coaches. And for those of us who can't just call it a career and retire and not have to reinvent ourselves, there's been this mix of having to learn new skills potentially, and or hire for these new skills. And so this idea behind an assistant coach / general manager kind of hit me as I was talking with people in that position across football programs across the country. It's just something that they've adopted and to help out because it gets pretty complicated in a hurry to look at all this information and to have conversations with families and recruits, and recruiting coordinator just doesn't cover it anymore. It's maybe just 1/4 of the job now. You've got roster retention, international recruiting, transfer portal. So we needed something new. And I'm thankful that I'm at a place where, we have a third time full assistant coach who can help out in the gym. And that kind of gives you the flexibility to create a position like this. And then you have to find the right person. And Nellie is someone who's played the game professionally and collegiately and had success, and she's been in some other business spaces as a real estate agent, and she knows about volleyball and the business of volleyball. And I thought, what an amazing resource for our athletes to have someone who has been everywhere that they want to be, and can help us grow in this new changing space. So yeah, that was the idea, and I was thankful enough to be at Minnesota where they supported the idea, and so we ran with it, and we're excited.
Well, my immediate thought when you first did it was when North Carolina hired Bill Belichick, and there's a complete difference in that because he's a professional coach coming to the college ranks, but he said he was going to run the North Carolina football program in essence like an NFL franchise, and he hired a general manager. You've been much more in tune. You're much more in tune with the athletes, the college scene. It's all different. But nonetheless, this is the first time someone has earmarked someone who's going to become a capologist, if you will, and talk about all of those things that you mentioned, that encompass into that job because everything's changed so quickly and so fast.
Yeah, it's a hard job to begin with, but also to do it in a way that feels sincere and authentic. Again, we were coaches and educators, and I've had to sit with, what am I now? Have they changed the job on me? I'm not a professional coach. I know that we're still in the college space, and the best thing I could come up with is, well, I'm just an advocate for these athletes. I've always been trying to give them skills to be successful in either volleyball or in business later on in life. That's what it means to work at higher education. So that hasn't changed. I'm still doing the same job, but they're getting paid sooner, potentially, right? Again, there's still a lot up in the air with the settlement, but we have to make plans, for things to kind of happen. And so, yeah, I've enjoyed learning. it's fun as a coach to learn new things. It's fun to talk to all these professional GMs and how they do their jobs, but that's not who I am, where I want to spend my time, right? I want to be with our athletes and in the gym and where I've been for the past 20 years. So I'm looking forward to having some help from Nellie as we kind of plot our course through this.
But to transition into the payment side of it, I mean, there's been the NIL, which is name, image, and likeness, but now you're going to directly pay athletes, and different programs are going to have different amounts that you can distribute among your players. And even I'm confused by that, and people watching may, in fact, be hoping for a Keegan Cook 101 on how this is going to work. And I'll take what you got.
Yeah, there's so much misinformation. There's more misinformation than there is information, right? And I think it was fascinating. You probably felt this walking around the convention, just the stories we were hearing. For like never before we heard stories about this. And what I want to make sure is we do think most of this information will be private, right? Because they're not employees yet. They're not state employees. They're not subject to public records, but there's still a chance that it becomes public information. And I need to make sure that there are reasons behind every number that an athlete receives, that I can explain both in the locker room and outside of it. I mean, the number of programs, mostly in other sports, that have been taken apart by NIL is unbelievable. The stories we hear about teams falling apart, and because the same again, if you don't have structure, right? I like to say that like NIL, or in this case revenue sharing, it can be rocket fuel, right? It can send you off into some amazing places. It's also pretty flammable if you don't have structure or a way to kind of.
You mean by that, like for example, jealousies to begin with, inequity?
Yeah. We all, in the professional world, we all have situations with salaries and workplace and coworkers, and how you navigate that as an adult is a skill, and you learn through different experiences. When you have moments where maybe you're envious and you're thinking about the wrong things, and you're not thinking about doing your job, but about getting the job and getting the salary you want. I mean, these are skills that our athletes can learn. I think there's a lot of opportunity for financial literacy, which hopefully is where this goes. That athletes learn how to have systems to take care of their taxes and to invest and to negotiate potentially, right? That they learn some really good skills. But I'm worried that that's not going to happen most places. But we're trying to, again, hire someone who can help them.
The logic on the outside looking in is that, the quarterback makes more than the defensive lineman. Does the setter make more than the middle blocker? Is there a pay scale like that, or does each team depend on, postseason honors, for example, or, how do you have the wisdom of Job with all this,
You have to come up, not only do you have to come up with a system, right, and a set of, I think, values that guide you, but you have to communicate that to families, and you have to communicate that to athletes in a way that is upfront, and then you have to stick to it, because otherwise you're just going to get lost in a hurry and make moves that I think aren't in alignment with how you've done things. And those are hard moves to explain. But we've tried to, instead of just kind of playing everything close to the chest, we've just tried to have a lot of conversations with athletes and with families, and go that route, and then have a little humility and say, hey, we're trying to figure this out with you. And we're trying to do it in a way that is authentic and sincere. And so keep calling, just keep calling. We're going to find our way through this, as opposed to, don't talk about it. I don't think that's the right path.
Yeah, we'll get to your team in particular, but coaches have told me that in the recent past now, even not kids in the transfer portal, kids who are still in high school, who are coming to college, they want to know, how much money am I going to make? And the transfers are putting themselves in a bidding war situation. And we've seen a few examples of that this offseason. Really, really high profile players going for, depending on what you hear and believe, an awful lot of money by volleyball standards. I mean, that's got to be eye-opening and sobering for you as well.
Yeah, again, this is where the misinformation comes into play a little bit too. I think, there are still lots of athletes, transfers and otherwise, making decisions to go to institutions where their potential NIL is not the number one reason they go. But those are always the fun stories that get talked about a lot, And the thing I often remind people is there's lots of miserable people in the world making quite a bit of money, And you learn that you need to put yourself in employment situations where it's more than just that. It can't be nothing, but it can't be everything, because you'll be pretty unhappy pretty quick.
On the other hand, we're evolving into a volleyball college world of haves and have-nots, and the real haves are few. And Minnesota is one of the haves, so you have to be in that number, no pun intended, where the numbers matter.
Sure.
You're going to have to spend that money, and I'm not even sure what question I'm asking or what I'm fishing for here. It's just that, you and I have talked a little bit, before this and other circumstances, and just about, all of these things.
Yeah, and it's all what it could be. Let's not forget that we're not there yet, right? There's lots of I don't think we're at the finish line of this. There is a bit of an impending deadline. I think in April is when we're supposed to get a final ruling on the settlement, and in July things can start changing in a hurry. So yeah, but instead of responding, coaches have just been having to respond to these changes. It's trying to get ahead of it is kind of the mindset that we've had.
How about we talk about those Gophers?
Okay, great. Fun.
You got a lot of experienced players coming back next year, and one of them is Julia Hansen, who had an absolute breakout season. She was just fantastic. Let's talk about Julia first.
Yeah, there comes a point in a season, and we've seen this happen when players do have a year like this, when you realize, oh, this is happening. I'm watching something happen right now. And I had a pretty honest discussion with her last January. I just said, hey, most players miss their moment. The window of opportunity is smaller than the athletes realize, and this could be your moment if you want it. And we kind of kept that conversation going through the spring. And to her credit, she went for it. And the other thing that she did a great job of is just communicating what she needed. She was doing a lot of new things for the first time. Her role changed quickly, and we just had a lot of conversations. And as those conversations happened, she allowed me to coach her more. She made changes faster. She did some things she had never done before and had success. And it was awesome. It was one of the most enjoyable coaching experiences I've had in a while.
I think if she picks up where she left off and continues to elevate, she's a first-team All-American candidate going into next season. She was that good.
She had those moments. She had those moments where you could see it and you thought, I'm watching something special. And the challenge, like it is for all players, it's a new season. You start at ground zero again. But I'm excited for
her. Before we get to the most important question, let's talk about setters. Stella Swenson comes from an incredible line of volleyball royalty, if you will, and her sister, of course, sat there, and can't wait to see her. Is she the leading candidate?
She's certainly done a lot of work to do that. I mean, the person that I'm looking at today, who came here a year from now, right, as a high schooler, looks a lot different. And some people redshirt and they don't do much with it. They just kind of enjoy the time off. And but not Stella. I think she's done the work, and she doesn't even look like the player that came here a year ago in all the best ways. And yeah, I think it was probably a really wise decision, especially with what we saw coming in college athletics before. If you redshirted an athlete, you gave them an opportunity to get their master's degree. But in this new world, when you redshirt an athlete, you might have given them an extra year to create opportunities for themselves and revenue for themselves. And people don't get that, because they don't live it. But Stella's going to benefit, I think, from the year that she took. And I'm excited for everyone to see her play.
Well, she replaces one of my favorite all-time players, Melanie Schaffmaster, is now playing pro. But what a great story! But now we don't have time for that. Oh, and McKenna Wooker coming back, she'll be a key component on. And but so I pushed the button late, so I've actually lost track of time. So I do want to stay under 900 seconds.
Okay.
All right. So you're going into your third year, and you don't get to go out much because you now have two youngsters. But favorite restaurant in Minneapolis? Or a couple.
Yeah, top two would probably be Porzana, which is an Argentinian steakhouse. So they're cooking steaks over coal fires. That's a big winner. Next one would be Hi, spelled Haihai. That's another amazing restaurant, kind of hidden gem in the north part of the city. And then I think Bar La Grassa, is in North Loop. That's a very well-known Italian place, but that was the place we had our first staff meeting. So that one's always going to have a special place in our hearts. So there's your top 3 must try if you're coming out here for one of the qualifiers, maybe.
I plan to visit you in the very near future. He is Keegan Cook. He'll be starting his 3rd year at the University of Minnesota, and he has been the first guest on 900 Seconds and a guest of seismic proportions. Thanks,
Stay
Keegan.
safe up there. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate you.